What do you think of when you think of yoga? Most likely it's folding yourself into a pretzel or standing in uncomfortable balancing positions for a couple minutes at a time. Now what if I were to tell you that yoga is a philosophy more so than an exercise, and that the poses are just one simple part of the entire picture? My name is Steve Forchetti and I guide people along their spiritual awakening. Today we're going to be talking about the 8 limbs of yoga. Now what is a limb of yoga? A limb is just a rung on the ladder that's helping you achieve what's called Samadhi or Enlightenment, Nirvana, Moksha. There are many names for the same attainment. This attainment is just an expansion of consciousness. It does not mean that you have escaped the physical reality or the matrix or 3D into 5D. It just means you've expanded your consciousness. You moved the boundaries back a little bit and you can see the world from a different lens. So what are the 8 limbs of yoga? In order, they are Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. These are Sanskrit words that carry heavy ideals that help us to live better lives as meditators, yogis, and just people in general. The first limb of yoga is called Yama, or your external restraints. There are 5 yamas in total, in which we will go into more depth in a future mini-series. But your yamas essentially are your restraints with the outside world. For example, non-violence or telling the truth. It's your ability to communicate from within to without, and your ability to restrain yourself from indulging in the world's temptations. The second limb is Niyama. So the word Yama in Sanskrit means restraint, and the prefix Ni means internal. So a Niyama is an internal restraint. These are your positive duties or your observances to self. Yamas, there are 5 niyamas in which we'll get into further detail in a later miniseries. These niyamas are essentially things that you do to keep your physical vessel, your internal self, pure and clean, such as taking care of yourself, bathing, intellectual pursuits, connection and devotion to God. Your niyamas are the things that you do on a personal level versus your yamas are the things that you do to connect with the outside world or to prevent the darkness of the outside world from penetrating into your being. So these 2 foundational limbs build upon each other. First, you must resist the outside world, and once you resist the outside world, you keep from coming in and corrupting the inside world. From your niyamas, yoga begins with a purification of self through body, mind, and soul. The third limb of yoga is the most popularly known one, asana, or posture. In society, specifically modern society, we spend a lot of time sitting down at a desk, which puts a lot of pressure and tension on our bodies. So we practice physical yoga or asana in order to help relieve the body of this tension and stress. This ranges anywhere from poses such as easy pose or sitting with your legs crossed all the way up to crow pose or tree pose. These are poses which involve great strength, dexterity, and balance in order to hold for longer periods of time. Asana builds on the first 2 limbs of yoga because by rejecting the outside world, you come into your practice, and by observing your niyamas, you allow yourself to take in the goodness and wholeness and richness of spirit through your spiritual practice that is yoga asana. Once you've gotten your poses down and you're able to get into certain postures, the next limb of yoga is called pranayama, or breathing techniques. There's a common misconception that pranayama means breath control because, as we've already discussed, yama means restraint, and prana means energy or life force. However, in Sanskrit, when a word ends with a vowel and another begins with a vowel, sometimes that vowel is combined. So the word is actually prana ayama, and ayama means release. So pranayama is actually the ability to release your breath, to allow a state of surrender, knowing that when you release your breath, your life force, you will receive more in the future. So as you exhale, you know that will come in next. Typically in a yoga class, you are taught to keep your movement in alignment with your breath. So as you inhale, you turn your body upward, and as you exhale, you turn your body downward or raise or lower the positioning of your body. This is pranayama. You are connecting your breath with your motion and releasing your breath with your motion, embodying the cycle of life and death. As you inhale, you take in life. As you exhale, you have a miniature form of death because you end that breath cycle to begin another, to exhale and end, and to inhale to begin another. Moving forward, the 5th limb of yoga is called Pratyahara, or the sense withdrawal limb of yoga. What does it mean to withdraw the senses? Well, similar to how a turtle, when it faces danger, pulls its limbs within its shell, we withdraw our senses to avoid things such as stress, anxiety, and depression. We use the postures of asana and the breath release of pranayama in tandem in order to build upon that and withdraw our senses to avoid the outside world even further. As the world throws its stressors at us, we use the asana postures and the pranayama release of breath in order to withdraw ourselves further from the world, not necessarily in avoidance, but in protection of the outside world's influences. As we go further within, we learn to know ourselves, and when we know ourselves, we are able to stand firmly in our resolve and face the world head on. So as you metaphorically withdraw your limbs and bring them back inside your turtle shell, you come into yourself to learn who you are so that when you reemerge, you are stronger and better for that practice. Through practicing Pratyahara, you are able to maintain a state of awareness in which your cognitive senses and external attachments no longer disturb you in any way. It means that your actions, your body and mind should not be driven by the external force or sensory inputs, but it should be truly in control. From there we move on up the ladder of yoga to the next limb, the sixth limb of Dharana. Dharana is focused concentration. Now, a really good example of this would be a candle meditation, where you are meditating, focusing simply just on the flame of a candle. Through this meditation, you are blocking out the outside world and focusing on that one singular object, that one little flicker of the candle. In practicing Dharana, you are able to focus on one thing and nothing else, tuning out everything around it, bringing yourself into a focused meditation. This is by far one of the best ways personally that I've found to increase my mental awareness and sharpen my mental faculties. When you're focusing on one object, it's impossible to let the outside world affect you because you're not focusing on that. You're just focusing on the one thing. So you're restraining yourself from other temptations, bringing yourself into a spiritual practice, finding a comfortable position to sit in, focusing on your breath, and withdrawing your senses to focus on one object. This is Dharana, and this is how the limbs of yoga build upon each other. So once you've come to a state of mastery of Dharana, we move on to the seventh limb of yoga, or Dhyana, meditative absorption. Once you're able to focus on one object so long that you forget the outside world is around you, you've entered Dhyana. This can be best described as a feeling of disconnection from material possessions or physical awareness. Your mind begins to slow down from alpha and beta brainwaves into theta, delta, and even gamma. This is a state of deeper concentration in which your awareness is only flowing towards one object of perception. This is a stage of the deepest concentration. You've become absolutely engrossed in the idea that your outer reality is untrue. All that exists is the present moment and what you're experiencing in your meditation. If you're connected with one object, say a waterfall or the candle flame, you know that that is the only thing, and all that is true is your connection with that thing that you're connecting with. You're slowing down your mind and allowing your mind to process this dense physical reality. As you shut out the outside world, you come into stillness and realize that all is one and one is all. You begin to connect with the uninterrupted flowing state of the mind. When you realize that just like in Hermeticism, as above, so below, as within, so without, you realize that the inner is the outer and the outer is the inner. So everything that you feel inside is a reflection of your outside world, and everything that you experience in the outside world is a reflection of the inside world. From here you've attained a complete inward absorption of the mind, and you begin to realize that all is one. You are connected with the Supreme in Samadhi, the final limb of yoga. Samadhi translates as pure bliss. This is also known as enlightenment, moksha, nirvana. There are many names throughout many cultures for this state of being. And this state of being can be experienced for a couple seconds at a time, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, the rest of your life. But typically it's only experienced for a little bit at a time. And you can go into this state and come out, and go into this state and come out many, many times over and over again. Samadhi is the closest that we ever come to dying while being on earth, because we begin to experience the love that is eternal in this world. As we find union with the Supreme Being or Deity or God or the universe, source, whatever word it is that you're comfortable with, you begin to experience that universal love that we all talk about, that's been spoken of since the flower power revolution of the 60s and even before then. Samadhi is pure ecstatic bliss. It serves as a reminder that there is more to this reality than we are told. Samadhi is that final limb because it allows an expansion of consciousness. Now, what is an expansion of consciousness? It doesn't mean that you're any better than anybody else. It just means that you're able to see the world through a different lens. You're able to see it through a more kind-hearted level of compassion. So as you reach this state of samadhi, be it from yoga, meditation, psychedelics, whatever the vehicle is that helps get you there, it does not make you better than anybody. Again, it just allows you to see the world from a different light and bring some of that compassion, a little pearl of wisdom, back into the real world. Now, the important question to ask yourself is, how does that change your life? How does it change how you bring yourself forward into reality? Because it's great if you can roll around in this state of bliss and dance with unicorns in a magical forest, But if it doesn't change how you act in the world, what's the point? We enter these altered states of consciousness to bring back pearls of wisdom. As we share these pearls of wisdom with others, we begin to enact change in the world like ripples in a pond. So consider this. What is it that you want to embody in the way that only you can? This is what yoga teaches. It is much more than just posing. So these are the 8 limbs of yoga in a nutshell. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you learned something from it. If you did, please like the video, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Again, my name is Steve Forchetti, and I hope you have a nice day. Namaste.